Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans, about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning. I'm Larry Ziliaks, Director of Culinary Services here at the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run. And this week, our guest is Larry Jackson, one of the co-founders of the Ben Jackson Foundation. This is a unique organization that I ran across just on the web one day, and I'd never seen anything like it. And it's just a great service that they provide. They offer financial assistance to young service members so that they can get a ticket home and come home and visit their families for the holidays, whether they're on a CONUS or out of country assignment. So it's just really a fantastic idea. Larry, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Larry. It's really great to be here.
So if you would, tell us a little bit about how you came to form the organization, and are you prior service yourself? Or?
Yes, I'm a Navy veteran from quite a long time ago. Served in the Navy in the early 1990s.
The foundation is named after your son, Ben.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about Ben and how the organization came to be named after him?
Sure. My son, Ben, graduated from high school in Wisconsin in 2016. Before he graduated, he was planning to go into the Air Force, enlisted in the delayed entry program. So he graduated and then went off to basic training in San Antonio, Texas, tech school, also Texas, and then got orders to go overseas to Misawa, Japan. So that was a big adjustment for someone who was 19 years old at the time. You know, it's an adjustment that most young people going into the military right out of high school go through. So he went to Japan. It was a 14-hour time difference. So it was a lot. It was difficult really for us to find any sort of time to talk when we were both awake and we weren't working or he wasn't working. So, there were definitely some points where he was just being in a new environment where halfway around the world, struggled, a little bit with just getting his legs underneath him. So I think the distance was a bit of an issue for him originally, but he quickly, made a lot of friends and had a really great time in Japan. He, at some point in January of 2018, he messaged me while I was on a work trip and said, "Hey, I'd love to come home and surprise everybody, come back to Wisconsin, see a bunch of people. Can you help me out with a airline tickets from northern Japan through Tokyo and finally to Madison." Ran about, $2,000. And this is 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So he needed some help paying for the ticket because that's about what he makes in a month. So I got him a ticket. I had airline miles because I traveled for work. So he came home, had a visit. We had a great time, surprised a lot of people. I was the only person that knew he was coming back. So after that week, he went back to Japan. My wife brought him to the airport. And then about 6 weeks after he got back, a couple of Air Force officers came to our door and told him he had been killed in an accident on base. So with that, we had a lot of people donating money to us, really just, kind of like we set up a quote memorial fund. We didn't really know what we were going to do with it. And then my youngest son, Matthew, said, "Hey, we were talking about what we should do with it." He said, "Ben got to come home for a visit, see his family. We should help other people do the same thing." And that seemed like the perfect thing to do. So we created what became the Ben Jackson Foundation to essentially provide almost like a pseudo scholarship to young people enlisting in the military out of high school to help them cover that ticket cost when they wanted to come home. As a matter of fact, when Ben was home, he told us a lot of his friends were jealous because while they could get the time off from work, they could take the leave, they just couldn't afford the ticket to get back.
Yeah, I know personally. I was stationed in Guam, and it was a long haul, time wise, number one, but also the cost was prohibitive for almost everybody.
Right.
Well, it's a terrible way to have to come about forming an organization like this, but just the service that you provide is amazing. So, tell us a little bit about the process. Is this, are these, we'll call them grants, available to any service member or just Air Force or?
Yeah, so we call them, we've named it the Ticket Home Award. So it's available to any enlisted member of the military that's been in less than 4 years.
Oh.
So our target demographic is enlisted. So officers aren't eligible.
Right.
And essentially at roughly your first duty station. So our criteria is you've been in the military less than 4 years. There are some cases where they actually haven't been able to come home in their first 4 years. So in those cases, we can still help them out too. But that's the eligibility. We do have a process by which we will review applications and select them because we get far more applications in a month than we could possibly support.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a process to look at those and grant the Ticket Home Awards.
And the application process, that's through your webpage?
Yep. So if you go to benjacksonfoundation.org/apply, you'll get an application. We take applications throughout the month, and then at the end of the month, we start reviewing applications received in the prior month. So we give out awards once a month.
Mm-hmm.
So usually by the middle of the following month, people will be notified if their application was approved or not. So anyone in October that applied, we just sent out notifications about a week ago.
Mm-hmm. And if I was a young service member thinking about applying, and let's say I wanted to come home for Christmas, when should I apply? Is that going to be like early October or?
Yeah, there's really not necessarily a time limit. If somebody applied in January and then got awarded in February, they could still use it, down the line in Christmas for that year. So there's not really an end date, per se.
Yeah.
But if after there are some cases where we just don't hear from the person for a couple of years, and then we just kind of essentially grant that award to someone else if they haven't used it after a couple of years.
Yeah.
Of them. Yeah.
And how many awards do you do roughly a month?
I would say on average in the ballpark of about 15 awards per month.
Wow.
And that's what we can support with our current level of fundraising. Mm-hmm. So always looking for new donors and sources of support. But that's about, I would say, on average. Now, I will say in November, so the current month that we're in, and I'm not sure when people will be listening to this, but every November we do what we call a Home for the Holidays campaign. So we try to raise an additional amount of money in November to let as many people come home in say December, January as possible. So
right.
This year our goal is to reach $30,000 in November.
While we're on that topic, our listeners know that when I'm ever talking about a nonprofit, we're directing them to the webpage. So I want everybody to go to the benjacksonfoundation.org, and you will see, as like every other veteran service organization, that donate button is right up there at the top right-hand corner. Now, normally it's red, but it's blue because of the Air Force. And I want everybody to start hitting that button and give what you can. I went through the process and made a donation, and it took all of 2 minutes. So it's not a struggle. It's simple. Just go to benjacksonfoundation.org, and the first thing I want you to do is hammer that donate button and donate what you can. Especially veterans, they know what it's like to be stationed far away, not be able to make it home for a holiday. I remember my first Thanksgiving, I was in basic training, and I was ill and was not in the hospital, but they had this thing in the Air Force down at Lackland called the Intermediate Care Facility. And is where you went when you were sick, but you weren't sick enough for the hospital, but you couldn't be in your training group. And that's where I spent my first Thanksgiving, and it wasn't fun. And then being overseas too, you think more about your family and your loved ones when you're away and it's a holiday. So being able to support the Ben Jackson Foundation and to give out as many awards as possible to bring young service members home for the holidays is just awesome. Where do you see the organization in, say, 5 years?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, at some point, we would love to be at a point where we could say yes to everyone that applies. I think, I don't know how realistic that is necessarily, but I can tell you that we recently hit a significant milestone of essentially we have given out over $500,000 in ticket home awards.
Hmm.
So I think, and really the majority of that has happened since May of 2021. So I think we'll definitely be over $1 million in ticket home awards granted by that point, for sure.
Wow. And what about corporate sponsorship? Do you have any companies that come alongside to help?
Nothing big. We're always looking for support that, if there's a company out there or organization that feels strongly about supporting military causes, we would love to, work with them. I will say that something about us, which you alluded to in the beginning, we are a little different in a couple ways than a lot of organizations. One is, like you mentioned, there's not a lot of organizations out there that help young people or really military in general getting home.
Yeah.
When we first started the organization, I really thought that there would be, many organizations that do this. So I first figured I'd go try to see what other organizations were doing, and was quickly surprised to find out I couldn't really find any.
Right.
So in that regard, we're pretty unique. I'm not going to say no one does it, but I mean, we're pretty unique in that way. And then the other way is there's a lot of, great organizations out there that support veteran causes. We are different in that we support active duty military, and not only that, but young active duty military, when they're especially, might be struggling with the stresses of being in a new environment, away from home, stresses of the job, of just being in the military in general, which can be stressful. And a lot of times, as you're talking about your first Thanksgiving, sometimes people just need to get back into their support structure that they've had their whole lives. So that's where we feel like we're definitely unique and different.
Yeah.
In that we help support mental health in a way that is unique.
Yeah, but so important. I mean, when I saw your webpage, I was just amazed. I was thinking, wow, I hadn't even thought about something like this. This is just great. Again, listeners, it's the benjacksonfoundation.org. Take a look. There's a great video on there, assuming your wife made the video, that talks about what they're all about. I encourage everybody to take a look at that. But be sure to donate. They also have a CFC number. So if you're a contractor or you're a government employee, look them up in the CFC directory and consider making that donation as well. So it's an ongoing thing. Where you guys are located in Wisconsin? Where are you in Wisconsin?
Just in the Madison area.
Okay.
So south central Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah. I have fond memories as a kid of Wisconsin. I grew up in Illinois, so we couldn't drink. We had to go to Wisconsin to drink.
Yeah.
But also,
yeah, I think they changed the drinking age right when I got into when I started high school. They just changed it from 18 to 21 or something.
Yeah, though it was 18 when I was growing up. But also, we went fishing up around Madison, Lake Wabisa, and it's a wonderful area. Madison's a great town, too. Do you do any local fundraising there? So if there are people in your area that they can go to anything that you host?
Yeah, we have a few different things that we do during the year. So we're actually based in New Glarus, Wisconsin, if you're familiar with that at all. So there's a couple of local businesses that support us. And then we have a festival in the fall. So Bailey's Run, great winery. They actually bottle a wine for us every year and then donate. I guess this is the fourth year that they donated $6,000 based on the sales of the wine. And then we have another tap house in town that they have a Veterans Day event for us every year. And then we're always out at Oktoberfest at the end of September in New Glarus. So a lot of people from Illinois coming out to spend the weekend in New Glarus. So we have a lot of great conversations that weekend.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay. Well, listeners, if you're in Wisconsin, if you're in that area, you want to pay special attention to any of the events that they have. And I'm assuming that's all on your webpage, right?
Yeah, and usually that'll be posted on our Facebook page as well. So I would say also check out the webpage, and we're most active on Facebook and Instagram.
Great. All right. Once again, the webpage is benjacksonfoundation.org. Go take a look, but be sure to donate, help them reach their November goal, and we can get as many young service members home for the holidays as possible. What you all do is really special, and I think our veteran listeners really appreciate it and understand that you do really serve a unique purpose that I hadn't even considered, but I'm glad I ran across your webpage, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time to join us and tell us all about your son and this wonderful organization.
Yeah, and thank you, Larry, for having me and for the donation you made. And I'll thank all of your listeners who took the time to hear about Ben's story, and all of your listeners who are helping us by donating. So I really appreciate all of it. Thank you so much.
So listeners, we'll have another episode next Monday morning at 0500. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can reach us at podcast@willingwarriors.org. Until then, thanks for listening.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.